After a little bit of a rain delay in Cincinnati on Wednesday night, the Philadelphia Phillies were shut out 8-0 by the Cincinnati Reds. They lost that series 2-1. The Phillies had just 8 hits and 1 run scored in those last 2 ball games of the Reds series. They obviously got the series opening win, but then just rough stuff out of the Phillies offense, and really their pitching in those final 2 games dropped the series to the Reds. The offense has been going flat really all season long. It has been an ongoing issue. Now, it does happen to every offense in the league, but really at this time of the year when you're fighting and for playoff positioning, all that stuff, and when you're actually into the playoffs, you really can't be going through these cold stretches as an entirety, as an offense. The Phillies had just 3 hits and obviously no runs in that ball game yesterday against the Reds. If you do that in the playoffs, you're going to lose and you're going to be bounced out early, like the Phillies were last year to the New York Mets in that NLDS. They lost in 4 games after winning the division, and the offense was cold. The bullpen wasn't great. It was just horrible stuff. And if that happens again, this fan base is going to go crazy and in a bad way. Welcome into Phillies Daily, everybody. I'm your host, Mike Henley. Make sure you guys subscribe for more Phillies content right here on Phillies Daily. Not only was the offense flat yesterday, but the starting pitching, again, wasn't great. Christopher Sanchez did have an overall okay game. The defense wasn't great behind him. He let up some runs, some unnecessary runs as well. But still, the Phillies pitching really not great as of late. We all know, if you've been paying attention and watching these games lately, Christopher Sanchez, last night in that loss to the Reds, he went 6 innings, allowed 7 hits, 1 walk, which isn't horrible. He did allow 4 runs, just 3 of them earned. As I said, some sloppy defense behind him in that ball game. He had 6 strikeouts in those 6 innings and picked up the loss. Now, he has been very good for the Phillies. He's one of the top National League Cy Young candidates this year in 2025. Honestly, as of right now, probably their best pitcher was Zach Wheeler, struggling since the All-Star break as well. The only other start recently that Christopher Sanchez let up some more runs than usual was back in a loss on July 28th to the Chicago White Sox. He allowed 4 earned runs, so those 3 earned runs and those 4 runs total allowed yesterday in that loss to the Reds. Nonetheless, Christopher Sanchez did have an overall pretty solid start. Again, like I said, just some sloppy defense, unfortunate for him, but still just a common trend for the Phillies that their pitching hasn't been that great or on their game as of late. We all saw the night before in that loss, Ranger Suarez was on the mound, didn't have his best stuff either. He is now 1-3 with 21 earned runs in his last 28 2/3 innings since the All-Star break. So he's been having some rough times out there, kind of showing similarities to last year when he started dominantly in the first half of the season, was an all-star, and then fell completely apart in the second half of the season and was really just atrocious out there on the mound. Ranger Suarez, it's starting to look like that might be an issue again this year. Hopefully not, and he can bounce back next time as we get to this last, or as we're in this last month and a half of the regular season and into the postseason. And then, as I said, Zach Wheeler also hasn't had his best stuff, which is very unusual for a guy like him. Obviously the Phillies ace, obviously really a top 5, top 3 pitcher in Major League Baseball. But Zach Wheeler, since the All-Star break, hasn't been great. His command has been an issue. His velocity has been down from normal. And really, you can go back to his struggles. Even the start right before the All-Star break that he had wasn't great either. So his last 4 or 5 starts, really off his game. Still kind of grinding through those starts and keep the Phillies in the game overall. But not his best stuff, especially from what we're accustomed to seeing out of a guy like Zach Wheeler. A little bit frustrating for him, for the team, and for the fans. And really just that trend, as I said, with all these starting pitchers struggling as of late and not on their game. And we all know Jesus Luzardo started dominantly to start his Phillies career in the first half of the season. Again, he was a National League Cy Young candidate for the early parts of the season. Then he fell apart on his start on May 31st, where he allowed 12 earned runs. And since that start on May 31st with those 12 earned runs, Jesus Luzardo has been very inconsistent for the Phillies every time he takes the mound. He's had a lot of bad games, a lot of mediocre games, and a few good games, very inconsistent. He's just not that guy that was consistently going out there and dominating opposing offenses like he was earlier in the season. Hopefully, this staff can regroup. We all know they're very talented. They're still one of the best starting rotations in Major League Baseball despite their recent struggles, and they should be getting a boost back with Aaron Nola returning very soon and how good he looked, especially in his last rehab start down in AAA with the Iron Pigs the other day. Sticking to that game yesterday, the loss to the Reds. The Reds did all of their damage with 2 outs in that ball game. Just, that's a killer for any team, for any defense, for any pitching. You get those 2 outs, you're thinking you're going to get out of an inning, which really you should at that point. And the Reds just clawed and fought, and they scored all their runs with 2 outs. Christopher Sanchez allowed 4 of those runs. Again, 3 of them were earned because of that sloppy defense that was behind him. I believe the Phillies had 2 errors in that ball game, but he allowed 4 runs with 2 outs to the Reds before he was relieved. And then Jordan Romano, everybody's favorite reliever in the Phillies bullpen, he allowed a grand slam in the 7th inning. So obviously those 4 runs charged Romano. Total for 8 runs that the Reds scored, shut out the Phillies 8-0. And all 8 of those runs, including that grand slam, scored with 2 outs in each inning that they scored the runs. Again, that's a killer. You get those 2 outs. You're expecting to get out of an inning, get back on offense, and do some damage of your own. The Phillies couldn't wrap up those innings, and ultimately it paid off for the Reds, and they scored 8 runs and really just dominated the Phillies to earn that series win over a very good Phillies team. The Reds just wanted them more. They're fighting for playoff positioning as well for the wild card. So, the Phillies kind of just ran into some good starting pitching with the Reds these last 2 games and just a scrappy offense as well. And unfortunately for the Phillies, they are now losers of 2 games straight and their first series loss in a little while now. The Reds also, something that you don't always see at the major league level or really professional baseball level anymore. You really don't see it unless you're watching Little League Baseball. And the Reds did hit a Little League home run against the Phillies in that win for the Reds yesterday on Wednesday. It was the 6th inning when it happened. There was a single hit to left center field. Runner was on second base for the Reds. Brandon Marsh fielded it. He threw it home to try to get, I believe it was Austin Hayes, the former Phil, trying to score at home from second base. Brandon Marsh airmailed it, threw it a little high, and then JT Realmuto jumped up to try to catch it, bounced off him, went to the right of him, a little bit away from home plate. Obviously, the runner scored. Like I said, I believe it was Austin Hayes. You can live with that. I mean, tough play, a little bit of a high throw. You don't really want that errant throw, especially that because then the runner who hit that single to the outfield advances to second base, gets an extra base out of it because of that throw, that bad throw. And that's exactly what happened. He advanced to second base, and then with that ball bouncing away from JT Realmuto, the runner who hit the single, who advanced to second base on Marsh's bad throw to home, started going to third. Christopher Sanchez was there to try to back up JT Realmuto, as he should as a pitcher in that situation. He picked up the ball when it bounced away from Realmuto at home. He threw it errant to third base, wide of Otto Kemp, who was covering third base, went right down the left field line past the third baseman. And that runner who was trying to take third base successfully got that. And then he ended up scoring to hit that Little League home run against the Phillies. It gave them a 4-0 late lead, the Reds there in the 6th inning. Again, a 2-run Little League home run. It was just 2-0 in that 6th inning before that. Some bad defense, some bad throws. Can't be happening at the major league level, but it did. And then the Phillies obviously really got out of control in that 7th inning when Jordan Romano came in, allowed those bases loaded, and allowed that grand slam to give the Reds an 8-0 lead. And that's ultimately what the Phillies lost by, 8-0. Shut out by the Reds in the series finale. Tough game, and it's one that the Phillies really need to forget about, put in the rearview mirror moving forward. You can't dwell on it. They're a very good team. You're a very good offense. You're a very good starting pitching. You got some good bullpen pieces now with Duran and all of them there in the back end of the Phillies bullpen now as well. You got to put that behind them. Like I said, the Reds are fighting for a playoff spot. They wanted it more. They got it. They won the series. You still won one of those games in that series. You weren't swept or anything. Tough 2 losses since then in those final 2 games. But now you're starting a 4-game series against the division rival Washington Nationals, starting today, away, on the road, again, before you head back home to Citizen Bank Park. That series loss to the Reds was the Phillies' first series loss since the White Sox at the end of July. So they have been playing good baseball as of late. They have been winning series. They did sweep the Rangers right before that down in Texas. It was just their third series loss now since the All-Star break. Comparatively, the Phillies won 5 series since the All-Star break. So again, they have been playing very good baseball as of late. As I said, they begin a 4-game series against the Washington Nationals on the road here. The Nationals, not a good team, one of the worst teams in Major League Baseball in 2025. They're last in the National League East. So you can't let that Reds series loss affect you in the head and carry into this series with the Nationals, because you don't want to lose this series to a bad Nationals team, put you more in a hole. Let the Mets catch up to you in the division race. Let other teams in the National League catch up to you as well if you're trying to battle for that top seed in the National League for the playoffs. So just put this in the rearview mirror. This is a series that the Phillies should definitely win, whether it's a 3-1 with this being 4 games or a complete 4-game sweep. So put that in the rearview mirror and come out strong to start off this national series. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Phillies Daily. I'm your host, Mike Kennelly. Make sure you guys like, comment, share, and subscribe for more Phillies content right here on Phillies Daily. Tough series against the Reds. Right back at it against the Nationals. Hopefully the Phillies can get back on track, get back in the win column, and start this winning streak back up. Again, thank you guys for watching, and as always, go Phils.